Hello, and welcome back to OK Karma, where I share with you some of the best stories that I find online, and they are never read to you by AI. Today, we're actually going to be mixing things up and going into the AskReddit subreddit, where Redditors are going to be answering the question, what is the biggest plot twist that you've seen in real life? And we're going to start with Meditator Bear, who says, in primary school, we had a World War I memorial lesson, and we were asked if anyone had any relatives who fought at the time. My friend brought in a picture of his great-great-grandfather with his wife. A girl also brought in a picture of her great-great-grandfather with his wife. The teacher said they looked similar. She put them side by side and looked shocked. We gathered around, and it was the same man who had kept his two wives a secret. Both had been married privately. They were cousins and didn't know. Bob Saget Base God says, met a dude at my local 24-hour fitness who was wearing a Shark Punch shirt. Since most people have no clue about that band, I immediately decided I needed to talk to bro out with this dude about his particular taste in music. We get to talking, find out he's a drummer, lives locally, and wants to start jamming some evil stuff. Awesome. Exchange numbers and all that good stuff. Of course, however, actually meeting up with reliable musicians is much harder than it sounds, despite the enthusiasm. Around the same time, I was working security at a local bar, and I met this random cute girl who wasn't from the area but was totally into me and wanted to hang out. We exchanged numbers and planned to meet up. When we finally did, we hit it off pretty well, but she had mentioned that she's still kind of, quote, dating around, but really liked me and hoped that I was okay with that. Totally was okay with it because I was also doing the same thing. We hung out maybe one other time, but then shortly after, I was hit with the, quote, sorry, but I'm kind of dating this other guy for serious line, and I said that I understood and moved on. When Jim Guy and I finally managed to get together to jam, a friend of his was there to play bass with us. We got introduced, started talking about random stuff, and then when Jim Guy happened to mention to the buddy about a girl that he was dating, he and I both started sharing our similarities and preference of people that we date, and I asked to see what she looked like. He's like, quote, sorry, dude, she doesn't have any social media or anything like that, but I have a video of her at some restaurant we went to a few weeks back. He shows me the video. Me, oh, she's cute. Him, yeah, I met her smoking outside of some bar in LA. Me, dude, she totally reminds me of this girl that I was dating not too long ago. What's her name? Him, Kim. Me, wait, really? That's so weird. I was dating a girl named Kim too. What are the odds? Hold up, she has a Snapchat, right? Him, yeah, why? Me, I start trying to find her on Snap. Dude, what's her name on there? The friend at this time is looking at the both of us like, oh no, oh no, oh no, and starts laughing. Both of us at the same time, Kimber Sleaze. Friend is dying of laughter at this point, and we both came to the realization that we're the same dudes she's ended up leaving and staying with. We still ended up jamming. Pokemon Gang says, maybe this isn't that big, but here it goes. I'm a medic, and one morning we had a call for an older woman, 70s, if I remember right. She was having cardiac issues, was in a compensated shock from a very low heart rate. From the time we got to her home to the time that we were in the ambulance, she had gotten much worse. We paced her heart, and she was doing good the rest of our hour ride to the hospital. About 16 hours later, we get called for a rollover car accident. We get there, and we have one male left in the vehicle, unresponsive. Vehicle's upside down, off the road. We get him out. He's in very bad shape, wasn't breathing, so we intubated him and off to the hospital we went. Almost to the hospital, which is 30 miles away, and he goes into traumatic cardiac arrest, dead when we got there. While we were on the way to the hospital, we found his wallet since we didn't know who he was. Saw his badge, retired police officer, and I remember from the morning our patient's husband was a retired officer. He was on the way to see his wife, and unfortunately he stopped by the bar first. While it wasn't my job, I went with the nurse to talk to the wife and let her know what had happened. She thanked me for being there for her family so much that day. This one's from a deleted user, and it says, I have a coworker named Joe. Great guy who has an equally great wife, Nina. Over the years, and even prior to meeting Joe, multiple doctors told Nina that she would be unable to get pregnant on her own due to problems with her ovaries and fallopian tubes. She and Joe decided that a child-free life was okay with them. So she and Joe married and lived happily for 12 years. When they started out, they didn't have much, but as time passed, they progressed in their careers and made a nice life for themselves. Finally, they got to a point that they were comfortable enough to buy a sports car for themselves, something Joe always wanted. It was the first new off-the-lot car that they'd ever owned. Now, Joe and Nina were in their early 40s at this time and figured they would just coast into retirement. Well, about 6 months after they bought the car, winter came. Nina got a case of the flu she just couldn't seem to shake. She just felt run down and nauseous and not herself. After about 3 weeks of this, she went to the doctor. The doctor asked if there was any possibility that she could be pregnant. She laughed at him and said, quote, "I've been married for 12 years and haven't had so much as a scare of being pregnant. Multiple doctors said it's just not going to happen for me. No way." But her doctor said, quote, "Humor me and let me rule it out. Just do a urine test." Well, wanting to figure out what was actually wrong with her ASAP, Nina peed on the stick and, you guessed it, pregnant. So in their 40s and with 12 years of living, just the two of them, they were expecting. After the initial shock wore off, they were actually pretty excited, even though they had to sell their sports car, since a two-seater wasn't really going to work for them. A few months later, their son John came into the world the usual way, happy, healthy baby. So they became a family of 3, and they still are today. John just finished his first year of high school, great kid and super smart too. You just never know what life's going to throw at you. How Poop says, "My sister's boyfriend decided that he wanted to do more with his architecture skills, so he gave his 2 weeks notice and moved to Haiti to help rebuild after the earthquake. They stayed together. He had bad phone service, so they mostly kept in touch through emails. He would send her long emails with photos and stories of what they were doing, and this went on for a couple of months. One offhanded tip from a coworker, in a week of sleuthing later, and it turns out he never went to Haiti. He moved to Seattle to be with his fiance and partner of 9 years." And then someone actually commented on that post and said, "This happened to the mother of my friend growing up. She was dating a guy for a few years and things were getting pretty serious. And then one day he goes on a holiday to visit his parents in Argentina. She goes to meet him at the airport when he's due to come home, and there was no sign of him for hours. So she calls him and he says he contracted a serious illness in Argentina and he isn't well enough to fly back, and basically says he doesn't have long to live. She panics and phones him every day just to see how he is. He starts avoiding her calls, and after about a week of not responding, she thinks the worst and contacts the police, who trace his credit card use to London, where she lives. They find an address that it's linked to, and she does some sleuthing. So she goes to the address only to find his wife and infant daughter, while he's away on a supposed business trip. They both bond over what a complete craphead he is, and both decided they're better off without him and dramatically leave him when he gets back from his business trip. Pretty sure the two women are still friends. Next story comes from Larry, and it says, "I graduated law and got engaged to the girl I had been with through university. We both applied for the same graduate program and ended up working in the same office on Canberra. 3 months before our wedding, I found out that she was cheating on me with our mutual boss, and I broke it off with her. Long story short, it got really, really ugly, and the two of us ended up in a very bitter court case over property. Canberra is a pretty small city, and the legal world is pretty small there too. And everywhere I went, I bumped into my ex. It was beginning to seriously get me down, her too, as it transpired. And I applied for an Australian government overseas development job in Tuvalu, a Pacific island with about 11,000 people. It's quite a prestigious job to get, with only 2 positions offered for a 2-year contract on a rotating basis. I was successful in the application and moved on island to start my posting, to discover that my ex was the other successful applicant. I spent the next 2 years sharing a tiny office on a tiny island with the person that I quite honestly loathe more than any other in the world." Contoro103 says, "Years ago, my company was slowly going under, so I was looking for other jobs. I got a job with another company and put in my 2 weeks with my manager. Me, I've been offered another job and I'm taking it. I'm putting in my notice. My manager, oh, well, we'd hate to lose you. Do you mind me asking where you'll be going? Me, I'm going to insert company here. Manager, sheesh. Me, ... Manager, I applied for that position too. Me, sorry to tell you, you didn't get it." Damn. Achy Breaky says, "My grandfather's funeral. He was always a fairly reserved and distant father as far as I understood. He would fit the stereotype of a northern dock worker who comes home expecting dinner to be on the table and then goes to the pub all evening via the bookies. Anyway, an unsurprising heart attack later, we're all gathered around at his funeral. We're a big but close family, so we know everyone, including his friends. However, one guy turned up about the same age as my dad and his siblings, who nobody knew. Long story short, turns out it was my grandfather's son from another family, from another marriage that went on for as long as his marriage to my grandmother. My grandfather had maintained 2 marriages over 40 years, having 7 children with my grandmother and just the one with the other woman. They knew about our family and kept away, and apparently my grandmother knew about them but kept it quiet. Turns out he wasn't going to the pub every night. And our last story comes from Chris Livingston, and it says, 1991, and I'm 19. Just signed the lease for my first solo apartment. Just got the first paycheck from my new job. I deposit the paycheck at an ATM. Another first. I'd always gone into the bank to do it. 2 weeks later, I get my bank statement in the mail, and I see with horror that I only have $1.87 in my account. Way wrong. I should have at least $200. I'd been very careful with my spending, and I'm freaked. I came within $2 of bouncing my first rent check. I'm literally reaching for the phone to call the bank when the phone rings. It's the police asking if my ATM card was stolen. I check my wallet and the card was missing. My job at a theater pub came with cash tips, so I didn't use the card often. And tell them I was going to call them anyway because I was missing $200 from my account. Well, we've got your card and your $200, so come down to the police station, they told me. I can't figure out how they have my card and the cash. It doesn't make sense, so I drive down there. Detective says someone, let's call him Bob, pulled in to use the ATM and saw a man acting suspiciously while he was using it, moving back and forth as if he was trying to dodge the camera. Bob says the man then left the ATM, got into a car, and drove away at high speeds as if he was fleeing. Bob then went to the ATM and put his card in, which popped out. Bob then withdrew $200, and then another ATM card popped out. My card. Bob's card had popped out because the crook had left my card in the ATM before speeding away. Bob realized he had withdrawn the money from my account and not his, so he brought my card and the cash to the police and reported the attempted theft. The detective gave me the description of the crook. According to Bob, it was a 5'7" man, brown hair, round gold-rimmed glasses. I say out loud, so about my height, my color hair, and glasses like mine, before realizing Bob was describing me. I had never deposited a check in an ATM before, so I was moving back and forth, following the instructions on the screen, filling out the envelope with my account number, punching the amount in, etc. I then forgot to take my card out and just left because I'm an effing idiot. I drove away at high speeds because I was 19 and that's how I drove everywhere. Worried that the detective might be annoyed, I didn't tell him that I was the crook. I just thanked him and left with the money I stole from myself. Somewhere in a box in my closet, I still have the police report where I'm both the victim and the perp. Okay, wait, those were awesome. We will definitely get back into some more AskReddit stories if you guys enjoyed those. And if you did, don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and feel free to share any of your own personal plot twists in the comments below. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.